Evan New, and we're doing Tech Teardown for Monday, November 25th. In today's headline, struggling smartphone maker BlackBerry has announced yet another management shakeup involving 3 of the chief executives. Earlier this month, BlackBerry ousted CEO Thorsten Heinz as the company failed to consummate a sale to Fairfax Financial, and the company then appointed John Chen as interim CEO. We haven't seen this much carnage since the Hunger Games. This is kind of insane. What's going on?
So we have CEO Christian Tear and CMO Frank Bulben both leaving the company. CFO Brian Bedolka is being replaced by one of their existing finance executives, James Yersh, and Bedolka is going to stay on for a transition. On top of that, Director Roger Martin, who's always been a corporate expert on corporate governance, and people that really hoped he could help improve their corporate structure, he's also resigning. He's been on the board for about 6 years.
I have a question. You said that the CFO is being replaced. What about the CMO and the COO? You didn't say replaced. Are they just gone?
They're just leaving.
They're just leaving? What happens to the positions?
So presumably all those functions and responsibilities will be absorbed by John Chen, who's now interim CEO. So this really puts a lot more risk onto his shoulders because now he's taking on all.
Would that worry you as a BlackBerry investor? That seems like a lot of jobs to shuffle.
Sort of, but at the same time, I don't think that. Bulben probably. He's only been on board for about a little over a year and a half. He started in May 2012. Both Christian Tear and Bulben were appointed directly by Thorsten Heinz, and with him going, kind of makes sense that some of the people he tapped might be going too. And on the marketing front, BlackBerry hasn't really done a lot. They've not really done anything memorable. They had their Super Bowl commercial. Kind of made some headlines, and then
I don't even remember a Super Bowl commercial.
That's the problem, exactly. And then they hired Alicia Keys as their token celebrity spokesperson, and that hasn't done anything. Generally that's kind of a move of desperation anyway. So I don't think that they definitely need to redo their marketing strategy. But yeah, now it's all on John Chen's shoulders.
Well, so shares popped very slightly in early trading, and now they're just kind of like, meh, whatever. What do you think of this move? I
think investors are ready for some change, and certainly BlackBerry's management has really gone through a lot of transition over the past couple of years. Of course with Thorsten Heinz at the beginning of 2012, and then now all of this. And but even going before that, it was very obvious that BlackBerry needed a management change from the 2 outgoing co-CEOs.
So are you saying this bloodbath to be expected? No one should be surprised.
Yeah, more or less. And more importantly, it's going forward. You need to start fresh, and they should have started fresh a long time ago, to be frank. But it's better late than never. And I still think they're kind of on the ropes and are in a very, very bad position. But it's good to get some change going at the top.
Well, so I spoke to an analyst earlier this morning, and he said there's a famous quote: "Turnarounds rarely turn around." What do you think?
I think that BlackBerry has. The deck's kind of stacked against BlackBerry in terms of actually getting this turnaround going. I think John Chen, there's been all this focus on John Chen and that he's been able to successfully turn around his previous endeavor and sold it to SAP. But then again, that's it is a similar business in some ways, but it's also very different.
And he's got a huge challenge, especially now he's going to be juggling 3 jobs.
Right, and BlackBerry is a much bigger company that has much more of a historical presence, and people know the company more, as opposed to his other company that a lot of people just aren't familiar with. So when you're, and that really presents a challenge when you're talking about a company that was as prominent as BlackBerry was, fallen so far, and now you have to turn it around and really, he has to be very targeted, and we'll see if he can do that, but I have my doubts.
All right. Just last week, Nokia officially launched its first tablet, the Lumia 2520. Nokia hopes that its Windows Phone momentum can carry over to tablets with the new Windows RT device. What are some of the first impressions we're seeing with this tablet?
So Nokia is jumping into Microsoft and is the only other company now making a Windows RT device. So you kind of inevitably will compare this to Surface 2. Now, as far as some of the early reviews that we're seeing, the performance appears to be better in terms of just raw performance. A lot of that, I believe, is due to the Qualcomm Snapdragon processor inside versus the NVIDIA Tegra that's in Surface 2. I think there was also some differences in build quality. Microsoft uses their vapor bag material, and Nokia is using a polycarbonate case, so very similar to his Lumia lineup of phones. So it looks very similar there. Nokia is only offering LTE models. Microsoft does not offer LTE on Surface, but that'll come later next year.
What do you think of Nokia's strategy of actually targeting Windows RT? Windows RT's had a lot of problems.
I think that Windows RT is probably the biggest weakness for this device. It is also priced a little bit higher than Surface 2 at $500 versus $400, but again, you get LTE, so there's some cellular features there. But beyond that, I mean, the biggest weakness here is probably going to be the same thing for Surface 2, which is just the app ecosystem. The platform itself is just not very vibrant, not a lot going on in there in terms of content.
So the two tablets, Lumia's and Microsoft Surface 2, seem pretty similar. It doesn't seem very differentiated. What's going to happen when Microsoft's, presumably the buyout's going to go ahead? Nokia shareholders approved it just last week. What's going to happen with this Lumia tablet?
That's exactly what I want to see because these two devices are so similar in so many ways.
Why keep them both alive?
Yeah, and once assuming that Microsoft can close this deal, why would it continue to manufacture, produce, and maintain two different devices that are so similar and the only differences in these very minor surface way, or not, pardon the pun, but I think that going forward, if the 2520 sells really well, I don't.
Do you see them killing the Surface?
I don't. I don't imagine they're going to kill the Surface brand because they've really consolidated on it. They put a lot of marketing into it. They repurposed their old Surface brand was like this big coffee table. They're really betting big on this new Surface. On the flip side, if the Lumia 2520 does poorly, I imagine Microsoft will kill it very quickly. Like I don't think they're going to have any reservations killing it if it does poorly. So at this point, it just launched. I'll have to wait and see how the market responds to it. I think it's priced.
And it's a very crowded market in the tablet space.
Exactly, and both devices still need the keyboard, effectively need the keyboard cover to really get the full experience, which adds even more to the cost, which Nokia's is $150. So I think this device is still priced a little bit higher than maybe it should be. And again, if it doesn't do well, I think Microsoft will probably just kill it.
Let's look at the week ahead. PC giant Hewlett-Packard reports earnings tomorrow. Shares have been rallying ever since hosting its analyst meeting in October. What can investors expect tomorrow?
So the street's looking for revenues of just about $28 billion, earnings per share of $1. And Meg Whitman at the analyst day did acknowledge a lot of the challenges that HP has going forward, but really kind of framed 2014 as the pivotal year. Had pretty decent outlook that really kind of reassured investors. In fiscal 2014, their adjusted earnings per share outlook is about $3.55 to $3.75. Planning on spending over $3 billion in R&D, really trying to get back to the innovation that hopefully they can start innovating again.
So that was a whole lot of numbers. Give me the real talk. What should investors be looking for in this report?
So as far as the printing business is concerned, I think that results from some of their peers and rivals in the printing segment are kind of suggesting that, again, the printing business will probably continue to see some headwinds there. I want to see if Project Moonshot is off to any starting to gain any traction in the data center.
Can you tell us what Project Moonshot is?
So HP has really unveiled Project Moonshot as a way to put ARM-based chips into the data center to really generate substantial benefits in power efficiency, energy savings, all sorts of things that we want to see if that's going to take off because they're challenging Intel and really kind of hoping that the efficiency play will resonate with customers. And I want to see if that's actually working because they're gaining. I mean, they're bragging for like efficiency gains like 90%, a lot of very big numbers in terms of the savings that they're offering.
The PC market is continuing to struggle, though. How do you see that affecting HP?
So I think that HP still needs to kind of try to diversify away from the PC market, but again, this is still a very big business for them. They've started, kind of get more into the tablet side. Still no smartphone, So as far as their devices and business actual unit goes, then I think that we're still looking at some challenges there. And then going into other segments like the enterprise segment, I think there's probably seeing some market share losses on the storage side to NetApp and EMC. So we have to see if they can kind of mitigate some of those losses. HP's also been, on the PC side, HP's been betting real big on Android and Chrome, or just devices in general. And I want to see, I'd be interested to see if management has anything to say about how those types of devices are doing because...
Do you expect them to break out specific numbers, or is that going to be something more likely that they'll just allude to on the conference call?
They'll probably allude to it in kind of loose terms. I wouldn't expect any hard data on it because these two businesses, or these types of units are going to be pretty small relative to the big picture. So it's definitely more of a, is this change starting to take hold? I don't think they're going to come out and say, oh, everything was based on these numbers, or based on Android or Chrome, because they're just not there yet.
All right. Thanksgiving is this Thursday. That means that the holiday shopping season officially kicks off on Black Friday, so get your bear mace and your shiv ready. Consumer-oriented companies rely heavily on the holidays for a seasonal uptick. What can you expect? What are investors expecting from the three biggest tech players?
So if we look at Microsoft, Microsoft has kind of outlined some of the deals that they'll be running through their Microsoft store, including some devices made by third-party OEMs, naturally. And right now, one of the bigger discounts that I saw that is expected is going to be the first generation Surface RT, which right now is priced at $350. They're going to be bringing that all the way down to $200.
Who is going to buy that though? Like, who cares if it's $200 when you can get a decent tablet like a Nexus 7 for like what, $229?
Brand new, yeah, brand new.
Yeah, a brand new one that isn't a generation old.
No, I think they're trying to just give these things.
I was going to
away.
say,
Like, anyone
they don't want to make another. They don't want another write down.
Yeah, I mean they've already written down almost $1 billion. They just want to get rid of these things and move on to try to get on to the second generation version. They're also discounting $50 off various Xbox 360 bundles, trying to get some of those previous generation consoles out as they kind of focus on Xbox One going forward. Apple's teasing its own Black Friday event. Apple does participate, but it's usually less aggressive on its direct sales. You can actually usually find better Black Friday deals for Apple stuff from third-party retailers like Target and Walmart. I think are doing some stuff that are more aggressive than Apple. Google, obviously doesn't have much product physical sales, but there is a rumor now that they might actually be launching their new Nexus 10, the second generation version, on Friday.
The Nexus 10 is a tablet, 9.7 inches, or
right? It's their 10-inch tablet.
10-inch tablet.
We've talked a little about some of the rumors around this device before, so still waiting on it to be coming out because it's been sold out on Google Play for a couple weeks, and I expect it maybe actually this Friday.
So Microsoft sold. You mentioned the Xbox One. Microsoft sold 1 million Xbox Ones, in the first day, which matches up pretty well to Sony's new PlayStation 4. Do you think the Xbox One will be a meaningful needle mover for Microsoft for this holiday quarter?
Well, I think the Xbox One is probably still being sold at a loss, like most consoles are in the first days. It might help their, I guess they just redid all the reporting, but it might help their consumer devices sales. But also, now we have a lot of other things being grouped into that, including Surface. And I think investors are more interested in how Surface does at this point because that's really where Microsoft's devices and where they want to head strategically. I think Xbox One is definitely going to be a big jump this quarter because of that 1 million units. But I don't.
In the holiday season,
right?
I mean, presumably not everyone already bought an Xbox One for Christmas.
Right, and I mean that'll start this season, and that was the big thing for Microsoft and Sony is to really get this launched before the holiday season. So they're going to be looking forward to how it goes over the next month.
Who's the biggest winner? Who do you think is going to be the busiest on Black Friday?
I think Apple probably will, just because Apple is the strongest in retail among these three companies. They have most of the direct presence. I mean, Microsoft certainly has gotten into the retail business, but they're still, their footprint is much smaller. Google certainly doesn't really do anything with retail, and since Black Friday is very heavily concentrated towards retail, I think Apple's larger presence there will probably be a little bit more, probably earn a little bit more as far as foot traffic goes.
All right. Let's finish up today with the rumor mill. Apple investors continue to anxiously await new product categories for the Mac maker to enter. As 2013 winds down, investors look forward to 2014. The rumor mill is heating up. Let's talk about the possible larger iPad first. We've been hearing rumors about this for a little while. What have you heard lately?
So the latest buzz is from Digitimes, and they're saying that Apple has tapped Quanta as the contract manufacturer for the large iPad. As previously noted, it's expected to have a 12.9-inch display, maybe even carry some type of iPad Pro branding. Mass production is expected to start in the second half of 2014, which would actually line up quite nicely with their fall event since they shifted their product cycles to fall.
Right.
And then let's see, big shocker here, there might be some possible supply constraints around this device because Apple's using a relatively non-standard display size, and there's also maybe some manufacturing challenges with regards to the design and the assembly. This device really would be geared towards the education and enterprise markets, though.
You mentioned Digitimes. We've trashed Digitimes before. Do you put any stock in this rumor? What makes this more convincing?
I usually just take a coin and I flip it anytime I see a Digitimes rumor. So there's some, or at least half of it, there's probably some legs somewhere behind this rumor. But again,
you mentioned it does line up with their traditional product
right.
category.
There are reasons.
Seen it shifted to October the last couple of years.
Yeah, there are reasons to believe that there's some legitimacy here, and again, sometimes maybe it turns out true, but things change down the line. So I mean, especially with Digitimes, I always take anything that they say with a boulder of salt. But I think that there's some things to maybe believe in there, and at least spark some discussion and conversation around it.
Now, I have another question. What about an iWatch? I thought about maybe an iTV, but I feel like the iWatch, Tim Cook's been dropping hints. Like he said, he thinks the wrist is natural. Do you think an iWatch is coming up soon?
So now, speaking of Digitimes, they also added on here that there are several contract manufacturers still competing for this win to get these orders from Apple, including Quanta and Foxconn and other well-known Apple suppliers. Component suppliers are now starting pilot production, and mass production is actually slated for the first or second quarter, which would actually be pretty early. That could mean they might be launching it sooner rather than later, maybe a summer launch, which
Would you expect, if there's a summer launch, would you expect to see it at the Worldwide Developer Conference?
That could be a pretty nice little platform for them to, since they don't really do major product announcements there anymore like they used to. So that could actually be a nice little timing-wise if they, do start ramping up early next year. And it's interesting. I actually was talking with Motley co-founder David Gardner about smartwatches lately, and he has a Pebble smartwatch, and he also has a Jawbone Up, which just a fitness thing, and then the smartwatch. And we were talking a little bit about some of the opportunities there that some of these tech players have, because clearly, just like in smartphones, the real revolutionary thing there was kind of consolidating all these devices into one thing, and same thing with smartwatches. There's now this whole market springing up of individual.
Evan, are you going to read a text message on your wrist?
Probably not, but
are you going to read an email on your wrist?
But you might want to notify, or but beyond the notification side of it, it's just the fitness stuff, because we know Tim Cook's a big fitness buff.
Right.
And right now you have separate devices, one for tracking your fitness, one for, but you don't need all these standalone devices. And if Apple can come in here, consolidate everything into one device, I think that's an opportunity that current players in this wearables field aren't really pursuing very aggressively.
All right. Earlier this month, there were rumors that Apple would finally announce its expected partnership with China Mobile on November 11th. Well, that obviously didn't happen, but the rumor mill's still grinding along. So what's our next potential date?
So now we do have an official date in one way, which is China Mobile is launching its 4G LTE, TD-LTE service on December 18th. The company has confirmed that China Unicom and China Telecom will follow later on. Right now, starting service will be in Beijing, Guangzhou, and Chongqing. And the rollout, the dates are official, but obviously the iPhone stuff is still where the speculation is.
Well, but that seems like if they're rolling out the 4G LTE, that seems like ding, 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 we're getting a phone that can use 4G LTE.
Exactly, and the iPhone has been certified on their TD-LTE network, so we have all the pieces are lining up, and with an official date in hand, it really adds even more credence to this idea that this deal is finally happening after people have been waiting for years and years, and even though it didn't happen on the 11th this month, we got to wait another month. It's not the end of the world.
We've discussed China Mobile quite a bit before. How big is this opportunity? What are the latest estimates on what this deal could mean for Apple?
So, over the years, China Mobile's subscriber base has just continued to grow, and at this point, it's now up to about 760 million.
Stop. 760 million. I just want to point out that's over 750 million people. That's a lot of people.
It is. It's more than twice the population of the U.S.
Yeah, that's a huge number.
One wireless carrier, and and even more within that number, only 176 million of those are 3G. So 3G penetration is still very low. Smartphone adoption is still very low in China, generally speaking. So there's still a lot of opportunity there. And if you take a big question for Apple has always been iPhone affordability. But if you say even the top 10% of customers are wealthy enough and willing to afford an iPhone, that's over 70 million subscribers that Apple could, overnight could just expand its addressable market. And that's before we even talk about some of the, various affordability initiatives that Apple's been going. Carriers have also started subsidizing iPhones more, or smartphones in general, more aggressively. So that helps lower the upfront bar for consumers. So there's a lot of things that are really kind of lining up for Apple to actually really kind of regrow its China business after it's kind of lagged a little bit this year.
I want to know, do you think it's happening in December?
I think it's happening this year.
Do you think it's happening?
I think it's happening this year. I mean, I said that for the November 11th.
Putting you on the record.
But
happening in December.
I'm on tape.
All right. That's all for today on Tech Teardown. Want to learn more about the tech stocks we're investing in? Just send an email to cto@fool.com and you'll receive our special free report on our Chief Technology Officer's favorite social stock. For Evan New, I'm Erin Kennedy, and we'll see you next time.